Hello dear viewers, my name is Nino and you're watching Nino's product reviews, and today we're taking a closer look at Foscam's newest dome camera, the FI9928P. The cool thing about this camera is that it comes with a lot of new features. We have 4x optical zoom, we have a Sony CMOS which will enable us to have some great night vision if we have some light sources. So we have two options here. Either we have to go with the IR blasters if it's completely dark and there are absolutely no light sources, or even if there's a slight illumination coming from somewhere, we can actually turn off the IR blasters and enjoy night vision in color. And we'll get to that later, but it's phenomenal. I've already tried and I'm very satisfied. But first, what's inside the package? We have some screws in here, some quick installation guides, CD with the drivers. We have this part here, which is essentially a plastic part used to isolate your LAN cable so that you can create a watertight connection to your camera. This is something that I'll explain a bit more in detail in a moment, but I just thought I'd show you the part itself. Another thing that I noticed earlier is that you also have a sticker which will show you where exactly to drill holes so that the camera can be positioned. That's definitely a very nice addition to the package. Makes it easier to work with. Here we have, of course, the power adapter and the cable with the camera attached to it, or rather the camera with the cable attached to it. And as soon as you grab the camera and try to lift it, you will notice how heavy this thing is. It is built like a tank. I actually like the way it's built, and I really like the weight of such devices. If I have a device in my hand which feels flimsy and cheap, it doesn't appeal to me. This is without a doubt, hands down, the heaviest camera which has been produced by Foscam so far. And that is because it is so sturdy. We have 9 layers of lens protection, basically the glass there. We have a lot of metal on it. Basically, I don't see anything that's not metal except that Wi-Fi antenna over there. And look here, we have an actual front tray for insertion of the micro SD card, which is great. And here I'm going to show you how to use that front tray. You see, all you need is this tool provided in the packaging. You need to unscrew these 2 screws here, and you're gonna have access to your reset button and to the actual micro SD slot. Now, why is this so great? Well, in previous cameras you had to sometimes open the camera up in order to insert a micro SD card. For that you had to remove a warranty sticker, which usually voided your warranty. There's been a controversy about this. Some people have told me that this is not the case, that Foscam's told them it's cool, but I specifically asked Foscam for this and they told me remove the sticker, you void the warranty. It was pretty stupid. Now, I had never had a case where I had to return a camera, so I don't know how much that's true, but you know, this just puts the question out of the book completely, which is great. Now, onto the isolation part. Unfortunately, in order to use this, you need to actually cut your LAN cable or the Ethernet cable and pull it through it and then reassemble it on the other end so that it hangs out of it, because as you can see, the opening is very, very small, and with the port at the end it's not going to be possible. For the purpose of this review, I'm just going to pretend we have a cable sticking out. So we insert the cable into the opening, then we're going to insert this rubber band in here, and let me just adjust it. I'm a bit clumsy with these things. You insert the rubber band, and then you're going to close up this little plastic tray that we have now. Our cable is basically hidden beneath it. We're just going to adjust it and spin it into place, and bam, we have an isolated cable. It's an absolutely watertight seal. I think it's a very nice addition for those of us who don't want to do Wi-Fi. Alright, now let's move on to the software side of things. I'm using the camera over my browser because I find it more convenient. It doesn't need any kind of installing. It works flawlessly and I have access to all the features. So for me, the browser movement and controls is more than enough. As you'll notice, we have the picture in the middle, quite large. On the left side we have quite a bit of settings, and we have outdoor mode set in at the moment. I've set the camera to 1080p. WDR is set to on right now, and NA is set to off. Now, WDR is a function which basically enables us to, it's like HDR on picture cameras. So imagine if you have a low light condition, the camera will actually try to brighten things up and make it look a bit more and better lightened. So it's not something to go crazy over because it has bugs, but it's something that can be very useful. Now, the NAA function is basically the network auto adaptability for the camera. It will enable your camera to adapt its stream quality to the network speed. So if you are using Wi-Fi and you have a bad connection, it will be able to still stream, but it will lower the quality of the picture. And that's something that I don't need to use here simply because I use Ethernet connection. It's faster, it's more reliable, and it's the better solution for me. Now, as you will see, we have mirror and flip functions. We also have zoom in, zoom out, and focus. Now I want to make it known that the camera currently is set up to not autofocus at all. Now while it is supposed to not autofocus at all, it will still do a little bit of focusing, but it's not going to be enough, so you will have to do it manually. I've intentionally set this up that way just to show you how sensitive the focus function is, and I really wanted to give you a feeling of how much control you actually have. So that's also why I'm doing it extra slowly here, so you can see that you can really change the focus in very small increments, and you still get a very clear picture. However, the autofocus works just as well and much faster than what I did just now. Of course, if I wanted to, I could go much faster too, but again, this was for the purpose of showing you how sensitive the whole thing is and how little you can adjust the focus, how minuscule it can be. Now, even while we're focused and zoomed in, you will notice that the camera sees everything very clear. It's not just the resolution, but mostly it is the 4x optical zoom which this camera brings to the table. An optical zoom, it cannot be compared to software zoom for me, simply because one of them, and that would be the software zoom, makes everything into a pixelated mess, while optical zoom delivers a clear, crisp picture at all times, and is just a much better function altogether. Now the camera spins sideways and in all directions. The reason why I did now turn a little bit like that is because I have not actually positioned it the way it's supposed to be positioned. You are actually supposed to install the camera so it's facing downwards and looking above things, you know, looking down on stuff. My camera is actually facing forward, which is not the standard way of positioning it, but I found that to be more convenient for this review, so I did that. If you, as you can notice, I'm still playing around with the zoom a little bit. This building over there, which I'm zooming in right now, is about 100 meters distant. Now, it doesn't seem like it would be that far, but you can trust me, if you walk the distance, you will notice that it's either 70, 80 meters, up to 100, I'd say more like 80, but you know, the distance is still quite big, and the quality and the clarity of the picture is something that you can't argue with. We have a very wide lens on this camera here. You'll notice how this path here seems to be a bit rounded up. That's actually not the case. The path is quite straight. It's just the wide lens that creates this feeling. It's kind of a fisheye view. We have different cruise functions, and we can set up the camera to cruise like crazy all day if we like. I would not advise you to do that, simply because cruising requires mechanical parts which move inside, and if you constantly use mechanical parts like that, you are essentially lowering their life expectancy, which, why the hell, you know, if it's not necessary. Now, as you can see, I'm just going quickly over some of the basic settings which will not give you any real improvements, like the multi-camera. Okay, I have two cameras here for the purpose of this review. The mail settings are very important, because once you set them up, you are actually going to receive pictures and notifications in case of an alarm. And the FTP settings are important for me personally, simply because I like to use my router and set up an external hard drive as an FTP server so that the camera can record straight onto that. That's one of the ways I like to save my recordings. When it comes to the video settings, we have two streams, the main stream and the substream. The substream will be with lower quality. You can of course adjust however you like, but the point of this is, if you're on a mobile device, for example, and use mobile internet, you can't really take the 1080p full video without having any frame rate issues, so it's better to go into the substream and see, for example, the 720 video. Timestamp and camera name is just what's going to be on the video. You can leave it on or remove it if you like. The privacy zone is a really cool feature which has become a standard feature for pretty much most cameras out there. It allows you to black out certain parts of the screen so that these parts are no longer visible. The point of that can be, for example, to cover up your neighbor. I apologize for this grainy stuff. This is the WDR, and that's something that I mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, WDR is always quite buggy when used with other functions or with night vision. That's why I personally prefer not using it at all, but for some occasions it can actually be really useful, so it's still a good function to have. Just you have to enjoy it carefully and you know, not use it all the time, but rather only when necessary. Now, the thing about the privacy zone with this type of cameras, if you move the camera, you pan and tilt the camera, what's going to happen is the blotch, the black part, is going to actually move with the camera and uncover the stuff that was covered. So keep that in mind when using this. It is only useful when in a static position. Now, snapshot settings are essentially the possibility to set up your camera to occasionally take pictures, set up their quality and stuff like that. It's very standard fare. IR schedule is the possibility to set up your IR LEDs to turn on from a certain time to a certain time. You can of course leave them to automatic when they will turn on their own when they detect it's too dark, or even turn them off completely with this camera if you have even the smallest light source, because it handles it very well, but we'll get to that later. Now the motion detection is where it's all at. You have camera sound and PC sound. Now the camera sound will not work unless you connect a speaker to the actual camera. It does have an audio out and an audio in, so you can detect. You can also connect a microphone and use the next function, which is the sound detection, but we'll come to that. In any case, it can't hurt to set everything up. And you can here now use 3 different detection zones. Each of them can have a different sensitivity. So I often get asked which sensitivity is right, what to use, etc. Unfortunately, there's no one answer that's perfect for everyone. Things like lighting conditions, distance, and various other factors will actually play a role in this. So what I suggest you do for your own personal case is set up different zones and just test it out. Set the zone you want guarded and set it, for example, to medium. Go walk around a little bit, see if it activates the alarm. If it doesn't activate it, set it higher. If it does activate it too soon and you think you're too far and it shouldn't, set it lower. So that's something to play with and keep in mind. In this particular case here, we got a bit of lucky. Some people are walking their dog, so I decided to actually show you this because it allows us to see how well the camera can recognize things like motion. Now, since the dog wasn't appearing for a while, I'm going to skip a part here and make it so that we can see the people and the dog a bit earlier, simply because, you know, waiting around and nothing happening is not that interesting to watch. But all in all, you're going to notice that the camera is doing a great job. At this point, I still haven't set up the autofocus here, and you can see the camera still is autofocusing a little bit. It will still adjust small differences like this, but if you zoom in too suddenly, it's not going to handle it. This is a skip I spoke of, and now you can see the 2 owners of the dog walking the dog, playing with it, and they're pretty close. And I would like to emphasize really that the day was pretty dark. It doesn't look that way through the camera because of the Sony CMOS, but it is actually darker than this. We had clouds that day. It was not a very pleasant day, but you can still see that everything is very visible. Okay, quite frankly, that would be the case with most cameras, but other cameras do not like motion. And again, the WDR strikes. I should really stop turning it on. And as you can see, in motion and while zooming, of course thanks to the optical zoom, we still can see everything in great detail. We can see the dog running around, we can see the people walking around, talking to each other, playing with the dog. It's all in excellent quality. If these people were, for example, some kind of bad people who were causing some kind of trouble, breaking something or trying to break in somewhere, it would be quite easy to recognize them with this video footage. So the camera does offer quite a bit of security when compared to other products. As you can see, even as the toy is spinning through the air, we don't have any pixelization. We can see it quite clearly and recognize what the toy is. I will get to the part where I will show you how the camera works with auto zoom, not auto zoom, sorry, auto setting for the not the zoom, but the other thing. Oh my god, it just got out of my head. Well, never mind. Let's keep that. We'll see it when the time comes. Now the sound detection we just mentioned, and the IO detection is essentially if you connect the camera to something like a smoke detector, and that will trigger as soon as the smoke detector triggers. So if there's a fire in your house, it will trigger your camera's alert. You'll send pictures, you'll scream, all these things that are standard if an alarm is being activated on the camera. The recording location is only for the local recording. And this is where we can set up the pre-recording. Now the pre-recording is one of my favorite functions. It allows the camera to constantly save 5 seconds in this case. And if something happens, these 5 seconds are going to be added at the beginning of the video. That means, for example, someone is opening my door. Once I see the video, I will actually see the door closed, then how the door opens, the person gets in, and that's about where usually the alarm would start. But thanks to the pre-recording, I have a longer video and I can see before everything started. Now, local alarm recording is again a setting only, which will apply only for when you record things on your hard drive. We have scheduled recording. However, scheduled recording requires us to have a micro SD card or an FTP server set up at least. That's not the case here, so I cannot set it up. But it is in essence the same stuff, it just records onto a different place. And as you can see, the settings are obvious over there in the background. Nothing too spectacular here. The SD card status will show us how things with our SD card are going. I don't have one inside, so it's not showing anything. And here we have the pan and tilt speed, the autofocus, and the zoom and focus speed. Now, this is quite useful if you find that the camera pans and tilts too fast. The autofocus was off here. I'm going to save it to on and show you what difference it is when I zoom in now. Earlier you saw how the camera was struggling and how I had to sometimes readjust. With autofocus on, the camera is really fast, the pictures are always crystal clear, and you don't really have to bother with that. But in case it ever should need, and that hasn't been the case with me yet, but I haven't had that much time to play with it. I mean, I've had, but I haven't been playing that much with the zoom in. But if in case this should happen, you can still change the focus manually and adjust it. Just as I said, once I turned it on, this was no longer a necessity for me. Now here are your cruise settings, and you can really set up a lot of things here. Personally, I will emphasize again, I'm not a big fan of using cruise functions in cameras, simply because any mechanical part that has to constantly move will of course deteriorate faster. Now, startup option will tell us to go into guard position. You can set up that guard position. This is something that confused me a little bit, and I had to contact Foscam on it. Startup time, and this actually means that after I start the camera, it will actually delay its guard position. It will not go immediately into it, but it will wait 30 minutes before it does that, which is pretty curious. I personally don't find it very useful, but you know, some people might, so I thought I'd explain it. That's how it was explained to me. It's there, so it can't hurt. Now, this is my night recording, and I took a picture with my camera. This is a special camera. It's not just a phone camera, and as you can see, it's quite dark here. Of course, I didn't set additional things up, but I really wanted you to see how dark it actually is. Those light sources in the back are quite small. Stuff is still visible, but now that you look through the eyes of the camera, you will see the Sony CMOS in a different light, so to speak of, because it really works with these lights like it's the best thing in the world. I mean, you saw how small these light sources are, and when I turn on my RF blasters, you can see that it's also visible, but it's actually handling it so well without that in this particular instance, when there are small light sources, I find it that much more convenient to actually use it without the infrared lights and just let it do its thing. This is one of the reasons this camera is so expensive to begin with, because it can deliver a stellar night vision even without the work of the infrared lights. So I'm going to turn them off now, and just to give you a feeling for it, I'll also show you again the photograph up on the right side, so you can really tell the difference between what my security camera can see right now and between my camera, which by the way cost about 1,200 euros, so it's a very expensive camera, and as you can see, the light is very dim. So another thing that I wanted to quickly address is the possibility to use the Foscam cloud. Now, if you want to access your camera from outside of your home network and you don't want to deal with DDNS and stuff like that, you should definitely go to myfoscam.com, register there, and you will have access to this even without any kinds of subscriptions. If you do decide to subscribe, you will also have cloud saving of your motion detection alarms. So I'm just going to demonstrate what happens because I just purchased a month of these. I purchased the 30 days model, and I thought that it would be interesting for some people to see what it's like. So down there, as you saw, we have different videos at different times, and you can just select which one you like. This is one that was recorded. Now here, obviously, I knew I was going to record myself. I'm turning around, saying hi to the camera, etc. The video, you will notice, is not going to be the same quality as the video you have at home. It's only 720p, it's not 1080p or whatever other camera you have. But this is quite useful, and I'll tell you why. You see, this adds an additional layer of security. If, for example, someone were to enter your home and also steal your camera or your router or wherever, or your PC for that matter, all of the files you have from the burglary will be with the burglar. So this is an additional danger. Doing this actually helps you have files somewhere recorded on an external server, and which can essentially be accessed from pretty much anywhere. So you can always check it out. And the 720p footage is actually good enough, and will provide enough of a image quality for you to be easily able to recognize everyone. Now here you see the different plans. I have that one for $12.99, and I gotta tell you, there's some things to consider here. First of all, you will notice, as I've said, that it's only 720p, as you can see, but that has an advantage on its own. While at first it claims here that the alarm video will last only 40 seconds, that is not the case. For some reason mine lasts longer, and probably because I've set it up in the initial software of the camera. The good thing about that is, first, that you don't have a lot of in terms of size of the videos. That means that your bandwidth will not be strained too much, because if you are leaving the alarm on the whole time and you move around the camera will be constantly sending information to the cloud and saving it. This is how it's with me, for example. I just find it easier that way. I don't have to deal with it, turning it on and off, you know, the alarm, even though I do it from the mobile phone. Now, a disadvantage here is that the subscription will only be for one camera, and that's pretty much it. So if you have like 2 cameras in your home or more, you need to actually subscribe for each of them individually. You can't even, the problem that I see with this is that you can't even change the camera. So if you were to upgrade your camera and you have a running subscription, you still gotta use the old camera until that subscription is over, or just take a new one. Now, another cool thing is that you can use the phone app, and it works really well, as you can see here. Just really snappy all in all. Now, it does seem like it's gonna be loading a little bit longer here, but that is actually because I had just started the Wi-Fi on this phone, and I had to wait a little bit for the first load to start, because I don't know why, it just took a little bit longer. Usually it doesn't take that long. But as you can see, you have the timer down there. You can change to live stream or to this stream, and the quality is absolutely sufficient. You can easily recognize me. That's me over there sitting on the computer doing my work. So the point of this was just to show you the general feel of the cloud service. I personally think that it is very good, and it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth its money. While it may not be cheap, essentially, if you consider that it's just for one camera and stuff, for most people it will be quite enough, and it will add this additional layer of security I spoke about. Because essentially, if you don't have it, you always run the risk that someone entering your home, stealing the physical camera with the SD card, stealing your PC, and then you have nothing in there. Thanks for watching my video, and have a great day.